Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, The Loss. Yeah, you're not losing us. You're not losing a podcast. You're gaining more knowledge about Star Trek Next Generation. The Loss on this episode of It's All Been Checked Before. You know what? Another way to not lose out on us is follow us on Facebook. Yeah, It's All Been Checked Before. Search for that. You'll find us. We're the only ones out there. We're on Facebook. Come out, talk to us. Give us some feedback. Hopefully positive. We'll take the negative if it's constructive. Otherwise, we won't do anything. We'll take it. Anyway, we just want to interact with you. We want to talk to you. Hear what you think about Trek, about us, about It's All Been Checked Before, and about The Loss on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Still non-bee killing Keith.
Listen to last week's episode. I'm not explaining it again. This is Jimmy-Jerome. We are here to talk The Loss, which hopefully, if you go to IMDB by now, Movie Dude 1's episode summary has been replaced by mine since they apparently think Deanna Troi has superpowers. Stupid. So I fixed the episode summary. We'll see if that worked.
He's probably listening, whoever he is or she.
Movie Dude 1, if he's listening, he can kiss my booty.
Wow.
So go look at the IMDb page and see if it says the summaries by me. Because we won't know while we're recording this. Anyway, we're here to talk not that. We're here to talk The Loss. First impressions.
It is. It's all right. Where do you even start? I mean,
it's not good. Is that where to start?
There are some problems. I will say that.
Deanna Troi acting absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay, I should say Deanna Troi acting legitimate and authentic to the way a modern human would act in that situation, but not authentic and genuine to the way Deanna Troi in the 24th century would act.
Yeah, a trained psychologist. They make the cliche statement about patient doctors and psychiatrists making the worst patients and so forth. And fine. I'm sure there's a little bit of that in the powerlessness, but it was just this kind of like picture of hysteria. And I hate to use that word, but that's kind of what they were doing.
Yep.
I kind of feel about this episode like I did the one last week, except maybe more so as far as I thought there were a few good character moments, but not as many as last week in the episode overall. And last week I mentioned replacement level. I consider this episode below replacement level. So
that's pretty harsh.
And afterwards I was reading and one of the I don't remember if it's Tor.com or which website it was ranked this the 8th worst TNG episode. And I didn't feel that way watching it, but I didn't like it. I don't know that I hated it that much though, but I don't know. Maybe I will by the time we're done.
There were a couple nice moments, but overall I didn't like it.
Not my favorite.
I do think it wasn't, I guess I should say, I don't think it was a terrible episode. Like, It's not, there are worse episodes than this episode.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it that much. We start out being introduced to Ensign Janet Brooks, who is too old to be an ensign, probably, played by Kim Braden.
I thought that too. No offense.
That occurred to me eventually.
So Kim Braden, she is second best known for playing Ensign Janet Brooks, who only appears, I believe, let me double check. I believe she only appears in this episode, yes. But she has only a handful of IMDb credits after this, and her final IMDb credit, which is what she's best known for, is playing Picard's wife in the film Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did not recognize her for that. Totally different hair and period style costume.
Last week we mentioned that it was 1990, and that hair, oh my God.
Was 1990?
Yeah, it was, that hair says it's 1990, but we haven't let go of the 80s just yet. Nirvana's a year away, so we're still clinging to the 80s, but wow.
Well, if I remember correctly, when she's in Star Trek Generations in 1994, her hair is pretty much 1894 hair.
Okay.
So,
and it's an amazing head of hair. That style is crazy. I also I think it's Troi says, it's been 5 months. And all I can think of, it's been 5 months.
I'm pretty sure that crossed my mind too.
So she also played Anne in the 1972 miniseries Anne of Green Gables and the 1975 series Anne of Avonlea. She only has 28 IMDb credits, but she starred in a couple of miniseries adaptations. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a bizarre opener. It was a little longer than I expected it to be, but I thought it was still affecting. And, we talk a lot about the different kinds of loss. Damn it. Pun not intended, but it's there. The different kinds of loss that these guys experience on a starship, and it's a natural thing to have happen. But I still thought it was affecting. Actually, what's less affecting is when she's like, hey, you cured me. I'm over it. Or I guess she just says, you know what? You were right. It turns out I have been, whatever. That seemed too pat. I feel like she should have come in like bawling her eyes out, like, oh my God, you were right. That might have been. But
so
anyway,
I found her annoying in every scene she was in. I felt like that character was totally confident about whatever she was feeling at the moment, and then would come back 5 minutes later and was totally confident about something totally different, and just way too. I don't know. I mean, everybody deals with loss differently and everything, but I did not like that character at all. And that opening scene, she's bragging about surviving the loss of her husband, which obviously is almost immediately shot down. But there's the music box is the thing Troi kept for her to remember him. I feel like this show uses music boxes too much. Am I wrong?
Maybe they were in fashion back there, or in the future, or they will have been in fashion.
I think you're right, but apparently they'll make a comeback later. But I guess I wrote this later about, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit, which is something else, another note I have. But Troi goes through Dabda as far as losing her, not her powers, but losing her empathic abilities. But I guess the idea is that our ensign here should be going through that too. But I'm with you, Jimmy, in that I just think she goes through Dabda way too easy. Like, no, nothing's going on. Okay, you know what? Now I'm angry. Nope, now I'm accepting. It's like, you shouldn't go through Dabda. And I know I'm not a trained expert and I should not, but you shouldn't go through Dabda in 5 minutes.
And this is all months after it occurred. So it's like no progress. Healed completely.
I think she's a sociopath and they should get her off that shit. Is what
are you talking about the patient still?
Yeah, the patient, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, yeah, that's...
I kind of mixed it there. The patient and Troi go through Dabda. Troi actually, I think, goes on a journey. I don't think the patient... We don't see most of hers, but it just seemed too pat.
I don't think I can't argue with the patness of it, but I don't think that it's that unrealistic in certain ways, in the sense that she had been... I described her in every instance I brought her up as smug. I said the patient is so smug that she's practically begging Deanna to take her down. And I thought that was kind of satisfying to see that play out in that first scene. But also that occurred to me later when you guys were mentioning that her age as an ensign. Maybe she's been demoted, or maybe she hasn't progressed because she's
got this personality. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic. I feel like I know people that are like this. I just don't like those people.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. There we are. No, that's it. It is that there's that projection of strength at all costs. And, the other thing is that she's kind of right, and that not everybody has to process grief in the way that that TV tells us that we have to.
Right.
What?
And
TV is completely right all the time.
That would have made it for an interesting thing as well, too. Maybe something they could have explored, but obviously not for the purposes of this subject, or at least this episode and what they wanted to explore.
Like I said, it felt like it was supposed to be a parallel to an extent.
Right.
Troi,
yeah.
Oh, it definitely was.
Definitely, it was. To me, it was. Troi was like losing her mind after 5 seconds. This woman took 5 months to even kind of feel anything, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your husband. Yeah, thanks. So what's going on this weekend?
Can't talk, working.
I say, let's just keep going on the Troi plot, and then we'll come back and pick up any other random notes later. Troy's pain and cutting back and forth what's going on the bridge as she's like falling down with her headache is directorially interesting, I guess, but also super obvious if there was any mystery. I mean, I don't think they could have genuinely built up a mystery of what's going on with her head when we knew this other thing was happening at the same time. But I don't know, I kind of liked the cutting back and forth that director Chip Chalmers did. This was his second episode he directed Captain's Holiday, Picard on Vacation.
Classic Chip.
Yep,
this whole thing.
Yeah, it reminded me of the episode you already alluded to, Jimmy, the music box episode, which was what
You talking about the X Bridges?
the X Bridges. That's where I was going. Yeah,
They mentioned that Troi doesn't have any other counselors to turn to. She's the only counselor on the ship.
Yeah.
Which seems weird to me for a ship of 1,000 when the Titan, which granted that's novels and it takes place like 20 years later, but they've got a crew of 300 and they've got 3 counselors.
right.
Well,
Why wouldn't you have a backup.
Yeah.
Beverly did say that there were people with training that could.
Like Guinan.
Well,
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I love that. No, she said that there were people that did have psychological training. I guess at the time I took that to mean that there were actually other working psychologists as well on the ship, but I guess it's not the same thing as being like the counselor.
Yeah, I didn't feel I just felt like there were other science or medical professionals that may have part of that as part of their training, but that's not their profession.
Right.
Was the way I took it.
Yeah, and I thought she was very aristocratic and very snobby. Like, well, that's not what I do.
To borrow Riker's word, yes.
Yeah, they can't help me. It's like, okay. And again, that gets to what you guys mentioned of her not feeling like Deanna.
I like that they did explain brain damage, though, for the not being able to sense anything. Like, there was a physical thing that was wrong with her.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and over the resolution to the whole thing is her empathetic parts of her brain were overwhelmed, and they short-circuited, and they basically had to heal themselves, which Beta Z brains are good at healing themselves. And all of that made sense to me from a medical perspective. The way she lost her superpowers and got them back made sense to me. I mean, the red kryptonite ring probably helped, but other than that, the dealing with loss thing, like I said, I feel like it was authentic to a person now. And I guess if the point that the writers were trying to get through was something relatable to the present day, I get why they went this way. But the whole thing about her being in such firm denial and even pushing Riker away just did not feel like her to me.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, I get the freak out. I get the initial freak out.
Yeah.
But then, sorry, Keith.
Well, no, it's just in general, I was bothered from a rhetorical perspective when we're getting into the arguments and the discussions and the metaphors and so on. It just, it didn't feel, I wanted to get there and start tweaking things. And I wanted to just yell at her sometimes and say, no, this is the way. I mean, this is, and I don't know, there's some clumsy analogies that we can make, if we lost one of our senses,
right?
And then we went to someone who was born without that sense and started whining to them about like, oh my God, this is impossible. How can, and just,
we were missing that scene where somebody had to whine to Geordi about they were blind suddenly.
Right. Exactly. And it's just what, and so they kept bringing up things like that and she kept cutting them off and, talking down to them. And it was just, it was infuriating.
I wrote she was using false equivalency. She was doing a lot of, well, it's just like this. And it's like, no,
right.
That's not a good analogy. That is not, that is not the same. And it was just
the patient's telling her about denial and Troy's not seeing the parallel in the slightest, which I feel like she's objective enough. She should at least be willing to entertain the possibility.
She does say it's like doing something with one hand tied behind your back.
Sure.
Have any of you ever done anything with one hand tied behind your back?
Maybe like some field day game in elementary school or something.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything in my life where, I mean, I guess.
Maybe some slight injuries every now and then or something like that where I've had to compensate, but I can't.
I've tried to do things while holding my phone. I guess that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I guess that's what it would be. Or I remember like hurting a finger and I had to put my contacts in differently or whatever. Yeah.
And also just like back pain or back injuries or something like that. When that kicks in, there's certain things or dizziness, like the whole vertigo thing. I mean, certain when you get to something like that, something that is actually, I think when we bring up those kinds of analogies and metaphors, we try to go too simple or simplistic, or the idiom is that one hand, but there's many other commonplace things, just certain temporary illnesses or injuries where you just like takes you out of everything.
Like you try to drive, but you're drunk.
Or you're trying to text.
Yeah. So Troi is super sensitive. They're like, it's a shame we can't tell if this thing's sentient. And immediately she's like, why?
Oh my God.
Why are you like yelling at me about this? They didn't
That
even
was
look
insane.
at her.
That was
I
insane.
didn't even look at her.
Okay, the greatest thing now, I didn't occur to me at the time. Stephen, have you watched the most recent Saturday Night Live yet?
No, not. I have not watched it.
So you know what we're talking about, the sketch that Jimmy mentioned, but it's
the Star Trek sketch.
Yeah.
The first one in 46 years where they didn't use their Asian set designer.
I think that's a whole separate discussion in the sense that it wasn't really Star Trek in the sense of them actually taking the Enterprise crew. Sure. This was just like an off-brand thing that they were tying to it, like within the theme of it. So
people
don't get your
modern personalities on the bridge of the Enterprise without everybody else was being professional.
Right.
I could see Troi acting with modern sensibilities when nobody else was. If that's the parallel you're trying to make, I don't know.
Well, yes, but I guess I just don't want to get Steven's hopes up too much about actually like being like Kirk and Sulu or something. It's just
right.
No, it's nothing like that. It's just,
even though Bo and Yang was in the traditional Sulu seat on the bridge.
But yes, the point is that there was that kind of misunderstanding of somebody flying off the handle just really out of character for an officer.
Yeah. The Troi saying like, how do you people live like this? And lashing out at Beverly.
Yes.
I liked when she said you're all blank to me, because immediately in my mind, the match game music went off. You're all blank to me. Match game 2375 with your host, Gene Rayburn.
I love that theme now. I don't know how much of that I saw as a kid, but within the last couple of years, especially about a year ago, I started watching the Game Show Network a lot more, and that was on in certain times, especially in the morning. So
finally recognizes her denial, and the first thing she does then is resign.
Yeah,
which seemed like overkill by far.
A bit.
Starfleet has lots of different aliens, even though most of the main characters seem to be human.
Mm-hmm.
For the point they're trying to make, I get it.
I'm trying to.
If you quit while you're still on the Enterprise, do you have to pay rent or something?
Well, I mean, they pick up people all the time and seem to keep them indefinitely, and so that's an interesting question in the sense that I never really thought about the idea of who. I mean, is everybody on that ship either crew or crew's family?
I think usually, but sometimes they ferry passengers. I want the scene of Guinan to come into his quarters with measuring tape. You got the guest quarters yet? I just need to take some measurement.
I thought she I think you guys just said this. She jumps the gun because no one tells her it's permanent. And I guess again, I get that where it's if you've had a condition where you're like, well, guess you can't do this anymore. You can get a little panicky, especially if you've been used to doing it all your life. Like she is, obviously it's part of her in a sense. But I thought there was also within the idea that, counselors aren't required to be Betazoid. It can be anybody. I thought there was kind of an argument of, it's not a perfect one, just like her analogies weren't perfect, but in a sense, if this is permanent, she's kind of a disabled Betazoid in that she's lost this thing she usually does. Right, but she can still do that job. So I thought there was kind of I know and thankfully that's become more of a forefront thing now, the ableism or the disabled being able to do things that we for so long have not allowed them to do or given them that opportunity. So I thought that was an interesting argument from 30 years ago. Well, in a sense, she's disabled. She's lost that ability, but she can still do the job. I mean, and I think they allude to it, or she does at some point that, my whole job isn't just, that I know your thoughts.
That was such a great, the whole Guinan scene was great. But I just want to go back here for a bit for throwing in some sports analogies and so on. So this is an imperfect analogy, which I guess is sort of the point to kind of expose the flaws in a lot of things that were going on here. So let's say that she were a basketball player. Let's bring that back. So she just happened to be able to also levitate. Yeah. And maybe she's a little lighter than air, something some advantage like that she's used to playing with all the time. And she's gone through all the training. She understands how to play the game. She can do all these things. And suddenly this goes away and she's just like every other basketball player and she's freaking out. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be this superstar. So screw it. I'm out.
Yeah.
And people, you could try to explain to her that no, you're just like everyone else, but perhaps you could consider that she's so used to compensating, or rather, she's so used to having this other thing to lean on that she doesn't know how to even just walk or run in a certain way or jump with her legs.
That's probably a better analogy, and to use more sports analogies, like, a pitcher who throws a fastball, 100-mile-per-hour fastball, and then has arm injuries. They say they have to learn how to pitch, and so they're able to do off speed and changing speeds. Or a basketball player who has a knee injury, they can't play that game above the rim. Now they have to find other ways to make that happen. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Speaking of which, I thought the loss meant this was going to be a sports thing, but I'm also wearing a men's shirt, so the loss is something I can relate to. But then I later wrote, "Oh, I see now what they were talking about. I see. I got there."
So I liked Riker ignoring her wish for solitude and hugging her, because that felt like Riker and it felt like their relationship. And I was glad she cried on his shoulder. I also really, really loved the joke about this is how he handles everything. Surprised how far a hug goes with Geordi or Worf.
Yeah, I thought that was great too.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel like maybe Riker's not the person that would go straight to a hug. But I think if Wesley was upset and hugged him, he'd hug him back. Like, I don't think Riker's too standoffish.
Oh, you're expanding on the joke part of that, or rather
I don't think it's totally a joke. I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, but I don't know. I think a hug is useful.
It helped lighten the moment for he and she. And
I put about that Riker said what I wanted to say at that point when he was the first one to really call her on it and say, "You're just upset because now we're on equal footing. You're so used to having that advantage in every situation that you're." Yeah. He didn't come out and say that this way, but you're like you're throwing a tantrum because you have to, play like everybody else. But that's where the aristocrat thing came in. Everything.
I would love that, because I just wrote, "Yep, he's not wrong. He's not wrong."
By aristocrat, did he mean it was like a person that sleeps sexually with a lot of other people, including family members? Is that what she meant?
Yeah, we could get into it, but then we'd lose our clean podcast.
Yeah, I was trying to describe that carefully.
The aristocrats.
The Guinan scene might have been my favorite, where we knew exactly what she was doing, but the way she did it about getting tired of people coming with their problems, perhaps she should become a counselor. And she's not. How do you know I'm not serious with the human intuition? And yet there was, as much as I'm sure Guinan was joking, it also felt like she wasn't joking. And honestly, she'd make a hell of a good ship's counselor.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the number of people that go to Guinan with their problems, those are scenes being taken away from Troi. It's almost like an extraneous character in that regard.
Deanna can make a lot of money as a bartender.
It's true, but I guess you do treat your bartender a little differently than your therapist. Your hackles aren't up with your bartender, you know?
Yeah.
But
they're both useful.
I want to come back to what you just said there, Jimmy. That was a great point. From the writing standpoint, from the fourth wall standpoint, the idea of Guinan taking scenes from Deanna in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I think it kind of does, but it's such a different personality that it doesn't feel like she does.
Right.
And you go into 10 forward, you feel differently. It's a different tone than going to the counselor's office. But still, if Maria Sirtis ever wanted to leave the show, I think they could hire Whoopi on full time and not miss a step.
Yeah. This is my other fashion note. Fashion. Is that the first time we see Guinan in that outfit?
I don't know.
It's the first time
looked like her other outfits to me, but maybe
I didn't notice anything different.
I know it's the one that's in the Netflix says, hey, watch The Next Generation. She's in it on the bridge. But it looks awesome. I don't know if the fit's perfect, but it doesn't matter because it looks really good. But it looks very warm also to me. Warm, not in a good way. Like she's got to be sweating, but she doesn't look like she's sweating. But I love that scene too. I also had a question. So when Guinan does her these heart-to-hearts, are the other bartenders covering her? I want to see them like, has anyone seen Guinan? It is crazy here tonight. Where
Guinan's
is
the
she?
manager. And Guinan's the
Okay.
manager. She can
So she-
walk around it well.
She more fills in to help them rather than.
Yeah. Yes.
Before you even finish the question, I've realized what you were about to ask, and do we see other bartenders?
Yes.
Yeah.
None of them are named, but we will frequently see other bartenders in the background, especially episodes she's not in, but in episodes she's in too.
I think she says no one said it was easy. And I
Yeah,
think it was
something
guys-
like that.
And I was like, what is that from? It made me think of the Coldplay song. Nobody said
I gotcha.
it was easy.
Yeah.
And now
that's
we're
all you
sued.
can sing.
That's all I can
Yep.
say.
Nope, too late. Was that like
Sued.
was that 4.9 seconds?
I don't know. It's a really slow song, so number
I
of
sang it out
bars.
of tune, so we might be okay.
Maybe that's why we only need one counselor for 1,000 people, because Guinan does such a good job.
Yeah.
That's funny. I also had the note, like, just like Guinan for the win, essentially. But I guess I'm piggybacking off of something that I think Steven said earlier. It's just, or no, I think it was Jimmy. Either way, the point is that we could see what she was doing, and even after Deanna acknowledged that she knew what she was doing, there was still more to it. There was still subtle enough that it kept working. There was still more she kept outmaneuvering her, and I love the way that played out.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think that was like the best writing in the episode.
The Riker and Guinan scenes we just discussed are 2 of the 3 great scenes of this episode.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much back to back, I think. So
Yeah. They're easily the best parts.
there's an early scene I skipped over because it has nothing to do with Diana that we'll come back to that I also really loved, but these 2 were really, really good scenes. Yeah. My next note here in the Deanna thread is, God, this patient is annoying. I guess she came back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put smug patient is smug again, and Deanna can't call her on it.
Yeah.
That moment of revelation of like, wait, she's probably lying, but I can't say anything else because I don't know for certain.
Sure.
I enjoyed that actually, but it's just I thought that was a good demonstration of what the metaphor I was going for with I have these abilities I'm used to using. I can't use them. Well,
yeah.
Can't do it.
And I will say, and these are my final 2 notes on Troy's plot, is after everything's healed, I love that they call back both of these things where Guinan once again asks about the counselor position again, because, better hours. While Riker tries to kiss her, which, whoa, we needed, that should have happened seasons ago. That seemed like a bigger deal than they made it in the moment, but she tosses back the aristocratic remark and storms off. So storms off. I think she's
playful,
being snarky, and then he's going to come to her quarters later. And
she certainly stormed off earlier.
Yeah,
out of that conference room.
I think that was more the playful, if you want to get some, you're gonna have to come to my quarters later. But yeah,
there's a lot of. I mean, as we talk about, there's a lot of fun, and again, it's in just there's a couple of scenes. And again, when Troi did storm out of the conference room, they linger on her longer than they linger on most people storming out, I think, or maybe I do.
When she got back to her quarters, and it was sort of like, it was like one of those gags where they won't end a scene, and she's sort of like, okay, is this a cut yet?
Right. Cut. I think I heard someone say cut. I thought the wrap up at the end was really easy, which might be combining both plots. And I thought that I wrote that Troi felt so sad all episode that at the end she was able to get back her turquoise when she got
her what? Turquoise?
Her powers back. Yeah, because she was in her regular red uniform, and then when she got her powers back, she got back in her sharp turquoise outfit.
I really feel like this should have been stretched for a few episodes with her, where she learned to be a counselor without him, instead of just snapping back as soon as they solved the thing.
That is
because the way they described it. So if you were thinking of the fact that she's in this thing with the 2-dimensional space, and we'll talk about that in a minute because I've got a number of notes on that plot. But if you think that she's in that current is blocking her abilities, then it would make sense that she gets them back the instant she snaps out. But that's not the way they explained it. The way they explained it was a brain overload that had to heal itself. So you wouldn't come snap back the moment you're out of that.
Right.
So it almost felt like maybe in the early draft, it was the fact that it was in the current was blocking it. And then the writers were like, no, we can do better. So they come up with something better, but they didn't fix the ending.
That is a really good point. I didn't catch either. I think it's one of the reasons why some of those explanations went past me. Dwell on that for a moment. That would have been great to have a couple of episode arc. If they could have done more continuity like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I noted that during the first Riker scene that he called her Imzadi. I was like, said that.
And she said
either
something
being
like
this one and last week.
blah 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 blah. Life goes on, and all I heard was obla di obla da.
That's where they got it from. While they were doing the puzzle, Geordi was looking at, that they had the shot of the ship with that different color on it. And Geordi was saying, oh, it looks like this thing that I usually see when blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it called attention to the fact, again, he's looking at a monitor and seeing the same color that they're seeing and be able to somehow,
Yeah, I didn't bother to write that down because we talked about it before, but I definitely bumped on it.
Yeah. The episode needed a poker game.
Yeah.
To really to highlight what was going on.
That would have been nice. Like she was cheating in poker at the beginning, and then she couldn't cheat in poker, and then she was able to cheat at poker again.
Yep.
Or she was able to win despite her disability.
That too.
So I'm going to jump all the way back to the beginning of the episode to handle this other plot, which was the B story, but was like the A story for most of the people on the ship.
Right.
But we start with a Picard Riker scene on the bridge. That was the third scene I think is great in this episode, where Picard's teasing Riker and trying to get him to come horseback riding in the Himalayas with him.
Oh, yeah.
Where to get some, quote, fresh holodeck air.
Nice.
Which I'm like, that's not fresh air. But that was my alternate episode, is there needs to be a Picard and Riker romance novel called Horses in the Himalayas or something along those lines.
So there's just one horse they're riding. That's what
Or Horse in the Himalayas. Riker rides back behind Picard or in front of Picard, whatever.
No, he programs a docile horse, as he was saying.
He could, but Keith, you're ruining the romantic overtones.
Before you move on from that, though, that's again, from the technical standpoint, the idea of maybe there being a better filtration system, or the fact that the holodeck probably would have to produce all these different kinds of chemicals or different atmospheres, that it might actually be fresher air than just whatever's in the hallways and whatever.
Yeah, you want to smell what you.
I was going to say, I don't think it would just produce holographic smells that smell like you think fresh air smells, but it's not fresh.
Television.
Could be that too.
Or maybe they just pump in air from outside the ship.
Did you say this was the B storyline or the D storyline? Because it definitely deserved a D.
Wait, I don't know if you mean
The ship storyline was better than the Troi storyline, so I don't think deserve a D.
Okay, I didn't care for it.
I mean, I won't say it was particularly compelling, but it made more sense than the Troi storyline.
Wait, are you talking about the holodeck in particular now, or are you talking about...
No, just the two-dimensional aliens.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was a cool concept. I watched some scientific video only a few months ago where they showed how a two-dimensional world would interact with a three-dimensional object coming into the world. And it was the neatest explanation, the coolest thing. And so that's all I could think about as I was watching this episode with the two-dimensional aliens, is this video that explains like what that dimension would look like, which I also used to try to picture what a fourth dimension is, and it boggles my mind. But yeah.
They had an episode with Futurama where they tried to do that, and it didn't really seem to track.
Yeah, I felt like this whole storyline kind of skirts around or near our ongoing thing of how come in space two ships are right in front of each other and they don't go around each other. It's like, oh, these guys must be involved in that all the time. They must be.
Oh my God!
Everyone, they're everywhere. Man,
I just. Again, maybe I was too distracted. Maybe they didn't explain this carefully enough. But yeah, so these two-dimensional beings are in essentially a three-dimensional, perhaps even four-dimensional space, because they're in space. I mean, were they only able to move in two directions? I mean,
two dimensions. So they can move in any direction, but a flat surface, basically. To me, the way I pictured it was like a flat current moving through space. That the Enterprise got caught in the current.
It's like a piece of paper. I'm trying to all these aliens or this cloud of whatever. So
I pictured it more like a ribbon than a piece of paper, but it would have boundaries on either side. I don't think it went through all of space.
I'm still trying to picture the up and down movement. It seems like if you only have two dimensions, you couldn't go
go left, right, front, back. You don't go up down if you're picturing it that way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, but I mean,
so they could turn 360 degrees. That's 360 different directions they could move, but they can't move up and down.
So this begs the question. So, right, we got the happy ending because, Troi got her powers back and she confirmed for us that, no, this wasn't a bad thing to them. This is what they wanted to do. Was this actually their point of origin? How did they get out of it? Where had they been? How are they getting back to it? How did they navigate? Were they lost at some point? Was it possible to even deviate from this track to an extent where they would?
I mean, it did seem like they were possible to deviate from the track because they turned around when the Enterprise used their signals to trick them. Mm-hmm. I thought that was so cool that it was the vibration, not the gravity, because the gravity didn't interact in the two-dimensional space. I thought that was a really neat scientific explanation. But yeah, the Enterprise got them to turn around, so they could move back. So it wasn't, my current analogy was inaccurate because they couldn't just keep going, or they didn't have to just keep going that way. But it was, they were attracted to this thing, so they were moving towards this thing they were attracted to. And we don't know exactly what was on the other side of that thing or what happened to them when they went in that thing. Perhaps that was two-dimensional space in there, and that's why it would have essentially destroyed the Enterprise. I don't know.
Right. But she inferred that it was their home.
Yeah.
Which implied that they might have left it at some point. No, I think
that was just more of a, I don't know that was their actual home that they left. I think that was just more of a, they've gone where they need to be type thing. Or where they feel comfortable, where they feel, I mean, it could be like Moses going to the promised land, But
I guess also in the sense that if they had left it at some point, they couldn't have gone up or down away from it. They could have just kept going, been just like reversed and come back. So
true.
Maybe.
True. So I like that Picard needs her to solve it. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I know it's a little hokey, but it made sense. My complaint about that was they said we're about 7 hours from getting pulled into the string, but the Enterprise looked right up against it. And when they were 1 hour from being pulled in the string, it didn't look any different. So maybe the scale is such that it's a really, really big string that they're running into.
It's two-dimensional. That's the problem. Yep.
I feel like they were short on money for special effects, so they just used the one space shot and then adjust to show distance. But how much money would it have taken to show the ship close and the ship far away from the same effect?
Well, they used it up on music and that alien effect, alien makeup in the last episode. So
they used it for 10 forward extras in this episode. Or Guinan's hat. Guinan's hat was very expensive.
Speaking of the hokiness, it reminded me of what I was thinking of last episode about when I was thinking about the contrivance factor of this episode, and that was it. It was constructing the episode so that it was like there was a psychology emergency.
Sure.
And I actually kind of appreciated the way that they represented it in that sense, coming up with a situation where she was desperately needed to solve something like that, and it can also combine with another science puzzle thing.
Well, we did have 3 writers on this episode, so sometimes that could explain the contrivance. It was a story by Hilary Bader, teleplay by Hilary, Alan Adler, and Vanessa Green. Now, if you look at their IMDb credits, Alan Adler has 8 writing credits. This is one of them. He was also additional crew for the movie Toys with Robin Williams, but he wrote The Concrete Jungle, which looks like a softcore porn from the poster to me. And he wrote Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jared Sin in 3D from 1983. Looks like a cheap sci-fi movie. So he doesn't have many credits, but that's still better than Vanessa Green, who only has 2 writing credits, this being one of them. So neither one of these have any other Trek credits. However, the story by Hilary Bader, she's got a ton of credits. She's been a writer for Batman Beyond, The New Batman Adventures, and Superman the Animated Series, as well as
I love those shows, of course.
Jackie Chan Adventures, Young Hercules, Xena Warrior Princess. She wrote the video games Star Trek Borg and Star Trek Klingon. I mentioned I played Star Trek Borg. It was pretty cool. It was like a movie. And she wrote 3 episodes of Next Gen, this being the first. 1 episode of Lois and Clark. 1 episode of Voyager. And 4 episodes of Deep Space Nine. So she wrote total 8 episodes of Star Trek. So we're going to get a few more from her.
I used to watch most of those things.
Yeah, she's definitely a nerd person. Like all the nerd stuff is there. At the Ensign, Tess Allenby is back. and she has lines this time.
Yeah.
It's too bad she's only going to be one more episode several seasons from now.
Maybe think she might be around longer, but we also thought that about Ensign Gomez. And
so I think the only major reoccurring character from Next Gen we haven't met yet is Ensign Ro Laren. And I know she's only in a handful of episodes when I looked at IMDb, but it feels like she was in a lot more. And she's kind of the semi-permanent replacement for Wesley in that spot. But other than that, we don't have anybody else. Like, there's not a permanent replacement for him. So
sounds familiar. I think I remember her. I think she
Michelle Forbes plays the character. She's great. We'll talk more about her when we get to her. But yeah, we're halfway through the series, so of course there's not going to be a bunch of new recurring characters at this point. We haven't met Keiko O'Brien yet. I don't think she's in Next Gen much, but she's in DS9 a lot. O'Brien's wife, because their wedding episode's coming up. So we'll get to meet her soon enough. Riker, near the beginning, teases Data for omitting seconds in his time estimate. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And then my last note is the final shot of the show is an unnecessary lingering shot of the Enterprise D driving through space, which my conclusion was they just ran a little short on the running time, so they stuck it in.
It also explained
the Enterprise fly.
The shot of Deanna in her quarters after she stormed out and was just standing there for a bit. Just a little bit.
I think they were running short on the episode running times.
Well, yeah, since they made the ending so pat, they're like, well, I guess we should add a little something on so it doesn't seem so pat. But guess what? It did.
Couldn't we have give Guinan a few minutes to like stare at her or something? That would have been better.
I only have two other notes, and they're both recurring themes for me on this podcast. One is at one point Riker says record engineering, doesn't touch the insignia or anything, just says record engineering. So again, I'm like, so wait, can Riker anywhere in the building just be like, anywhere in the building, anywhere on the ship?
On the ship, you don't have to use the comm badge, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you think about how those assistants work now, the Siri and Alexa and so forth, they're just always listening.
Call Geordi in engineering.
Yeah. I guess my fan fiction or my series would be every time there's some kind of miscommunication like that, where it's like they don't mean to call somebody, but they end up calling somebody.
That would be way too problematic. That would be way too easy to do with the technologies. It's just like talking and saying the word call.
Yeah.
Well, Lower Deck
to
that next season.
Yeah. Wait, is that for sure, or you're just saying?
No, Lower Decks needs to. It's for sure. They're making Lower Deck season 2 right now, but need to do.
Well, call me, you guys. I'll write a couple of those scripts. I'm ready to go.
I think season 2 is already done being written. I think.
All right, season 3 then.
Season 3.
So you're saying it's all been done?
Yeah. Somebody, I think several people say, what is the status? What is
they ask Data what the status is?
Yeah, and I say status, but maybe status is correct also.
I think so.
I'm guessing it is. Yeah, Data or Data. Caribbean or Caribbean. Both are correct. It's status.
Rum or whiskey. Same thing.
Anyway,
I guess only Nolans is correct.
Oh, sorry. I do have one more note. So when I was looking at stuff and I found that this was ranked 8th worst in one of those things, the other thing, what somebody else referenced that they thought Deanna was as whiny as Luke Skywalker in A New Hope in this episode, which made me laugh.
I'll give him that.
I thought that was on the money.
Alternate episode?
So my alternate episode was that, okay, Troi loses her, I'm going to call them abilities and not powers.
Thank you.
But everybody else on the ship gets hers.
Ooh.
So everyone, it's kind of a naked time, naked now kind of thing, kind of, in that everyone knows what everyone else is thinking and about them and everything. So that would have been another in the sense of, you can take a big leap as far as that. And then the whole time, Troi is actually acting to help people with their abilities, because she knows what that means, even though she doesn't have hers during that time. So I thought that was my alternative.
I like that. Oh, well, I had an alternate episode. Instead of Troi freaking out, she is just in complete denial the entire time. Like, either she keeps insisting that nothing's wrong, or insists that she keep doing the job anyways, not being able to do it correctly. And the smug patient ends up having to help her through. And through doing that, is able to express her own feelings and realize that she is in denial. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, that'd be good. And I feel like there'd be some good comedy, and that she would just always be like, I sense he's not being honest. And she would just say that about everybody. Also in my alternate episode, Mel Gibson appears because as a shout out to what women want, but what nobody else wants on planet Earth.
What if they only gain the empathic abilities to read Deanna Troy's thoughts instead of each other's thoughts? That would be kind of fun. Turn it around on her.
All the different things. Wow. The different ways people would use that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is... I hate to be that person, but it's just it feels like these are like 3 better ideas right there. Mm-hmm. It's just and
I don't know.
No, I mean it's easy to be armchair now after they've done all the groundwork. They laid it out. We can just go, let's pick at this now. Let's tweak it here. So
well, let's get to the rankings.
We don't make Star Trek, Keith. We make it better.
There's no point in asking and ranking Wesley's annoyance anymore, so I'm not going to ask it until the episodes he's back for. But I do think let's just keep going with our annoyance of the week. So who was your annoyance this week?
Troi.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a foregone conclusion until you sort of reminded me of the smug patient, the smug ensign. But
that's good.
No,
see,
she went above and beyond.
Going with.
Yeah, so that's fair.
Janet Brooks, Ensign Janet Brooks. Troi, fair choice. Janet Brooks does it for me.
I'm still going with Troi, though. It was above and beyond in certain places.
Is that because you want Ensign Janet Brooks as your crush?
That is not the case.
Is anybody changing crushes this week?
No.
I didn't think so. Ranking the episode, I sense that we want to start towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's compare it to last week's final mission, better or worse.
This conversation has actually made me like this episode more than I did going in.
I'm with you on that. That's probably one of the first times it's happened to me. That's usually the other way around, isn't it?
That's the thing. I don't like Troi in this episode, but the Riker and Guinan stuff were great. The Riker Picard exchange was great, and the concept of the 2-dimensional space aliens was cool. But Troi was awful, so I would still put it below Final Mission.
I think I do too. Still.
Yeah, all right. I would say that she was probably further skewed away from herself than Wesley was from himself.
Oh, easily.
In the prior episodes, so yeah.
So Final Mission was next to last at this point. The last place right now is Suddenly Human. I'm not sure. I'm kind of torn.
Yeah. I want to say this was better, and I definitely feel like it's a recency bias.
I don't think Suddenly Human had any moments that were as great as the best moments of this.
That's where I am right now.
There it is. The other thing is I think I would probably get more out of rewatching this one than Suddenly Human, honestly.
Yeah. That's fair. I would say the annoying parts of this were much more annoying than anything in Suddenly Human.
Yes.
But for Guinan alone, I'm okay with putting it above Suddenly Human. Yeah,
I think I am too.
Okay. We'll put it next to last then.
I'm now dreading the episode that's going to come along that's worse than Suddenly Human, even though I didn't hate that episode. We just didn't like it.
It wasn't a bad episode.
Yeah, it wasn't like a code of honor or anything.
And I would not say this was a bad episode, honestly.
Yeah.
I would still watch this again. These 2 episodes were still better than TOS season 3. A lot of it.
Yeah.
TNG is we got the whole, the pizza cliche.
So, I just mentioned Ryan's going to be getting married here to Keiko next week. Data's day. Data tries to comprehend the complex emotions between O'Brien and Keiko, who are about to be married. I'm kind of disappointed we never saw them date. We're just going to jump straight to their wedding, but okay.
Isn't that how most relationships work?
I guess O'Brien's not an important enough character, but now I guess we know why he hasn't been attending the poker games for a while.
So Data's day, is this where he goes around Chicago for a whole day?
No, he apparently, even though he's not the groom or the bride, their wedding is his day.
No, it's because Data wears a white wedding dress to the event.
Yeah, Data's in a dress uniform for the picture. I think he's officiating.
Lots of fashion.
Yeah. Well, until next time then, live long.
Even if you're not empathic or empathetic, and prosper.
And save the bees. Sorry.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?